What if I told you that President Goodluck Jonathan has secrets so shocking that has been hidden from the public for years? In this video, we will expose these 5 hidden secrets of President Goodluck Jonathan, and the 4th one will blow your mind. Before we dive into revealing these 5 shocking secrets of President Goodluck Jonathan, make sure you hit the subscribe button below and subscribe to this channel. January 7, 2014 was a pivotal day in Nigeria's modern history. On that day, President Goodluck Jonathan, under immense political pressure, signed the controversial anti-gay law into effect. The law, which criminalized same-sex marriages and civil unions, was a direct challenge to Western values, particularly those championed by President Barack Obama and the United States. To many, it was a statement of defiance, a declaration that Nigeria would not be swayed by external influence. But Jonathan's signing of the law was not just about asserting national pride. It was deeply rooted in the politics of Nigeria itself. The decision was seen as a strategic move to appease powerful religious leaders and conservative factions within the country, who saw homosexuality as a threat to the moral fabric of Nigerian society. Jonathan's administration, already under fire for corruption and mismanagement, was looking for ways to maintain political support, particularly in a time of mounting dissatisfaction with his rule. The law's passage sent shockwaves through the international community, especially the United States, where LGBT rights were seen as a cornerstone of Obama's presidency. For the first time, the world watched as Nigeria openly defied a major global power on human rights issues. Obama, a known advocate for LGBT rights, did not hesitate to respond. His administration condemned the law, calling it an affront to human dignity and equality. For Obama, this was more than just a political issue, it was personal. "I believe that gay couples deserve the same legal rights as every other couple in this country," Obama famously stated during his presidency. His commitment to LGBT rights was unwavering, and Nigeria's anti-gay law was a direct challenge to that stance. The US government's reaction was swift and forceful. Obama's administration sought to isolate Jonathan diplomatically, making it clear that Nigeria's global standing had been tarnished by the law. The impact of the anti-gay law was far-reaching. International human rights organizations condemned it, and the Nigerian diaspora in the West protested vigorously. The law became a focal point in the media, and soon, the narrative around Jonathan's presidency shifted. He was no longer just a leader of a nation, he was the symbol of a government that defied Western values, and that perception was quickly gaining traction. Despite the international backlash, there was a large faction of Nigerians who supported the law, believing it was a necessary step in preserving the country's cultural and religious values. To them, Jonathan had stood firm in the face of foreign pressure. But as the weeks passed, it became evident that the law would not just damage Nigeria's international relationships, it would set the stage for a much larger political showdown. What followed was a series of events that would plunge Nigeria deeper into political chaos. International condemnation was only the beginning. Soon, the US would go beyond just diplomatic protests. Obama's government, with its deep interest in Nigeria's future, began to take steps to weaken Jonathan's position. But the real turning point came not from diplomatic channels but from within Nigeria itself. The opposition parties, particularly the newly formed All Progressives Congress, APC, seized upon the law as a rallying cry. They framed Jonathan's signing of the anti-gay law as an example of his failure to lead Nigeria into the modern age. The APC, whose main goal was to unseat Jonathan, saw an opportunity to gain support from Nigerians who were disillusioned with the status quo. The stakes were high. With the upcoming 2015 elections looming, Jonathan was already facing mounting criticism over his handling of the economy, the Boko Haram insurgency, and widespread corruption. The anti-gay law became the final piece in the puzzle, a glaring symbol of his administration's struggles. Now, the question was not just about Nigeria's internal politics. It was about the growing influence of foreign powers in Nigerian affairs. How much of the criticism Jonathan faced was truly about the law, and how much of it was about the international community's desire to influence Nigeria's political future? As Jonathan's enemies circled, both at home and abroad, it was becoming increasingly clear that the forces arrayed against him were not just political, they were global. The US, under President Barack Obama, had long championed LGBT rights as a fundamental part of its foreign policy. Jonathan's law was not just a domestic issue, it was a symbol of defiance against Western ideals. Obama's response was swift and unrelenting. It wasn't just about criticizing the law, it was about sending a message. For Obama, this law wasn't just a policy issue, it was personal. His administration had made significant strides in advancing LGBT rights, and the law stood as a stark contradiction to those values. His administration made it clear that it would not stand idly by while a major African nation passed such a controversial law. In the following weeks, diplomatic tensions between Nigeria and the US escalated. Obama's government imposed sanctions, limiting Nigeria's access to certain forms of aid. The US also encouraged other Western countries to follow suit, applying diplomatic pressure on Jonathan's government. Behind closed doors, discussions were held in the US about how to weaken Jonathan's influence and increase support for his political opposition. This wasn't just a matter of human rights for Obama, it was about political leverage. Meanwhile, Nigeria's government tried to maintain its position, framing the law as a defense of its cultural values and religious beliefs. Jonathan had to walk a fine line appeasing his domestic supporters while facing mounting pressure from abroad. The law, which was designed to solidify his position with Nigeria's conservative base, had inadvertently opened a new front in the battle for his political survival. Obama's response was not just about public statements. It was about direct political action. The US increased its diplomatic engagement with Nigerian opposition leaders, particularly the All Progressives Congress, APC. The APC, a coalition of political forces opposed to Jonathan, had already been gaining momentum, and now it seemed as if they were receiving backing from one of the world's most powerful leaders. In February 2014, US Secretary of State John Kerry visited Nigeria. Officially, Kerry's visit was aimed at strengthening bilateral relations, but his meetings with Jonathan and opposition leaders raised eyebrows. Kerry's private meeting with Muhammadu Buhari, the leader of the APC, was particularly significant. Buhari, although not yet a candidate for the presidency, was already being seen as the primary challenger to Jonathan. Kerry's visit to meet with him, even though he was not in a government position at the time, was a clear sign that the US was preparing to back Buhari as a potential future leader of Nigeria. This diplomatic move by the US sent shockwaves through Nigerian politics. The message was loud and clear: Obama's administration was actively working to remove Jonathan from office. This raised serious concerns about the sovereignty of Nigerian politics. Was Nigeria's leadership being decided by its own people, or was foreign influence playing an overwhelming role? In the months that followed, the APC continued to gain ground, fueled by both domestic dissatisfaction with Jonathan's leadership and the foreign backing they were receiving. The US played a critical role in shaping this narrative. The political divide in Nigeria became sharper. Jonathan, who had once enjoyed significant support among Nigeria's elite and conservative factions, now found himself fighting a two-front battle, one against the APC and another against the international community. His popularity began to slip, and cracks appeared within his own party, the People's Democratic Party, PDP. Members of the PDP, many of whom had once been loyal to Jonathan, now began to distance themselves from him, fearing that his presidency was no longer tenable. On the night of April 14, 2014, a horrifying event unfolded that would change Nigeria's political landscape forever. Boko Haram, a violent extremist group operating in the northern part of the country, abducted 276 schoolgirls from the Chibok Government Secondary School in Borno State. The girls, aged between 16 and 18, were taken from their dormitories in the dead of night, sparking outrage both in Nigeria and around the world. For Jonathan, the kidnapping was a defining moment, one that would expose his administration's inability to control the growing insurgency in the northeast of Nigeria. The Chibok abduction was not just another headline, it was a crisis that would capture the world's attention and turn the spotlight squarely on Jonathan's presidency. The timing could not have been worse. Just months earlier, Jonathan had signed the anti-gay law into effect, igniting tensions with the US and the West. Now, with a tragedy of this magnitude, Jonathan faced not just international condemnation but the threat of political collapse. His administration's failure to respond quickly and decisively to the kidnapping added fuel to the fire. In the days following the 2015 election, the political world was abuzz with discussions about the peaceful transition of power. Jonathan's concession speech, his acceptance of defeat, and his smooth handover of power to Buhari were hailed as monumental moments for Nigerian democracy. But for those with a deeper understanding of the forces at play, it wasn't just a peaceful election, it was the culmination of a larger international strategy that had been years in the making. If you found this story insightful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth political analysis and fascinating stories from across the globe. Let us know your thoughts on the role of foreign influence in Nigerian politics in the comments below. Your voice matters. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more.